I want you to ask yourself this one question. Have you made money overall from sports betting, or have you overall lost money? Yes, anyone can win a few bets here and there, but overall the hard fact is if you don't keep track of your bets, then very likely overall you have lost money to the bookies. If you have been keeping track of your bets and you still are up money, then congratulations, you are one of the top 0.5% of the people out there. For the other 99.5%, today I'll be sharing the 5 most common mistakes that people who start off with sports betting tend to make. I didn't just pull these out of a book or search them online, rather it comes from my over 1 year of betting experience. Even with someone teaching me and guiding me along the way, and even though I was still a winning bettor, I still made every single one of these mistakes, or if not, I know someone personally who made these mistakes. And this is especially true, especially in the start of my betting journey, so learn from my mistakes and don't make them yourselves. Also, I go over more details and other things I learned, as well as the actual strategies I use to bet nowadays that took months and months of mistakes and learning to optimize in my sports betting package. This covers my 3 most profitable strategies: horse racing, same game multi, and same race multi offers, and has automated formulas for EV and arbitrage calculations. There's also a video recording on how to use the Excel models with examples and notes and tips on each strategy, and you can find it over on my website. Link is also in the description below. The first mistake that many early sports bettors tend to make is not managing their bankroll properly. This is something a lot of beginners tend to make. What bankroll essentially is just how much money you have ready to bet. So I might have $2,000 that I'm willing to put into my betting accounts, and therefore my starting bankroll is $2,000. And I don't want to put any more money, so therefore my bankroll is just that $2,000 of cash. Now with betting, naturally there comes risk, which is something we want to phase out as much as we can. And to do this, we want to manage our bankroll carefully. If we have $2,000, we don't want to be betting $2,000 all in one go. We want to split it up and reduce the risk by breaking it up into smaller bets and therefore diversifying. So instead of betting the $2,000 all at once, what you should be doing is betting small amounts, say like $20 or $50 each time. So you have to lose a lot of bets before you actually deplete all your resources. This also gives you the benefit of starting off small and then seeing if the strategy actually works, before you end up losing too much on a strategy that wasn't even profitable in the first place. A lot of beginners might start off with a small bankroll, say only $100, and they might be betting $30 or $40 all at once. And within 3 bets, their entire bankroll is gone. They've just lost their $100 and they never want to touch betting again. Even though it could have just been completely bad luck, and the strategy was actually very profitable if you think about it in the long run. It's only later on when you see a strategy working and you've built up your bankroll through these profits is when you start sizing up and increasing the stake of your bets up to as long as it is plus EV. One thing you can follow is something called the Kelly criterion. I won't get into the maths of it right now, but essentially it lets you calculate how much of your bankroll percentage-wise you should be betting based on the risk factor of the bet and how likely you are to win. The second mistake many sports bettors tend to make is just falling victim to their emotions, especially if they are on a losing streak. Now, humans have this cognitive bias when they start to get their emotions involved, even though betting and the mathematics behind it is purely a logical game. There's no emotion or anything or feeling involved in it at all. So for example, I could have had a losing streak where even though my strategy was profitable in the long term, I just had a run of bad luck, and ended up losing 20 bets or so in one day. Now I might be feeling pretty angry and just frustrated at myself and thinking the rules are unfair. So I think surely, okay, well I've been unlucky so far, surely now it's time for some good luck. And then what you end up doing is putting in negative EV bets or bad opportunity bets, and then in the end you've completely burnt through all your profits, and then you've burnt through your initial bankroll as well, and you've lost everything. So this mindset of trying to win everything back just because you've had some bad luck isn't the right way to think about it. Instead, what I do is just assess my profit and loss, put it into my spreadsheet. Even though it could be a big loss for that day, I'll just reassure myself by looking at the entire profit line and making sure that that is positive and that's all I care about. Yes, this day I lost some money, but overall it's just noise in the equation. Then what I'll say to myself is, tomorrow when there's more positive EV bet opportunities, that's when I'll look to make my money back, hopefully. And for today, I'm done, and we'll just wait until the next day. where there's actually good opportunities waiting rather than just trying to make it back through bad opportunities. The third mistake many sports bettors make is not understanding how a strategy works mathematically and not being able to work out the expected value of it. Relying on gut feeling or favoritism is definitely not going to be a profitable strategy. But this is unfortunately what pretty much every punter, recreational punter, or degenerate gambler ends up doing. They might think, oh, Messi is the best player in the world, surely for him to score a hat trick it's pretty easy. Or you might think, oh, I'll bet on Rafa Nadal to win the French Open because he's just so strong on clay courts and he pretty much never loses. Or you think, oh, Manchester United is such a big club, I support Manchester United, they have Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm just going to bet money on them to win the Champions League and win the Premier League. Well, yes, they might be stronger teams or stronger players, but eventually all that favoritism has already been priced in, and how likely they are going to win has already been priced in, and the bookies on top of that have added their own edge and the house margin to make sure that they're profitable in the long run rather than you. This also includes things like listening to other tipsters, which probably don't know any better than you, or listening to a friend giving out their expert tips because they've been following that sport for a bit longer than you have. Meanwhile, working for the bookmakers are professional sports people who have experience probably playing pro in that kind of sport, and also very smart mathematicians who can work out all the odds and simulate these games and know the exact probability of events happening much better than you can accurately price them out. And they'll make sure that you have no edge at all. What's worse about this kind of thinking is it makes you think that your odds of winning are worse than they actually are, which is eventually how you get hooked onto this betting, and then eventually you'll just end up losing in the long run. Now, the mathematics behind every sports betting strategy and model that I use, I go over in my sports betting package, where I show you the Excel sheets and how you can mathematically work out the probability and therefore the expected values of each type of bet. I go over the strategies I use and I back it up by explaining the mathematical principles behind it, and I show you how you can hedge it as well to guarantee an arbitrage or ride the risk to have positive expected value, and how this positive expected value is calculated in the first place. But it only works if you are in Australia, as we'll be using examples from Australian bookmakers. The fourth mistake is overconfidence and a lack of re-evaluation of your strategies. And I was very guilty of this after a month or so of betting. So after a month, I had made about $1,000 in profit, and I felt I knew everything, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then I thought, this strategy I'm trying is just perfect. It's so good, there's no way I can lose. It's definitely profitable. And then I just keep betting on it, keep betting on it, keep betting on it. Until eventually a couple weeks later, I realized I've just lost $400 in a day. And then recently I have been on a bit of a decline. I wasn't really working out the expected values mathematically anymore. I was just going with what I felt was right. And I was basically doing this because I had made money early on and I was very confident in what I was doing. Way too confident was the problem. Eventually I got to a day where I lost over $1,000, and that was when I realized, okay, I probably want to work out how profitable these strategies are once again mathematically. So I sat down at my desk, worked out the numbers, and ended up the calculations showed that this strategy was actually costing me money. Something I thought was profitable was actually stupid, and now I was just sinking money, and more money all into it and losing more and more. And this was seriously hurting my P&L in the long run. So essentially what was happening was that the bookmakers were using something called tote bets rather than fixed odds to reduce the odds of the favorite horses, which was what I was betting on. And I didn't bother to take a note of this or care because I wasn't really checking it anymore, what the fair odds should be on a betting exchange. And then this reduced my EV significantly and was what was causing me to lose money. So the lesson here is always keep track, and every now and then make sure you reevaluate your strategies, work them out mathematically, and make sure they are still profitable, because things can happen, things can change, or things can be optimized further and make you more money than you had been before. Before you might have an edge of 10%, but if you optimize it again, you might get it to an edge of 20%. And keep trying to think of ways to improve, even though if you are making money and if you are losing money, definitely reevaluate. You should always keep track of how things are going, even if you made some money early on. You don't want to get overconfident, and just keep tracking your P&L as you go and keep betting and betting each week. The fifth thing is not thinking too much about betting. You're not being aware of especially all the risks that there are when you are placing each individual bet. You might think, okay, I've placed this bet, it's profitable, that's it. Not think about it ever again. But there's a lot of different things that can happen to it if you aren't careful. For example, especially when you are placing multiple bets, you want to be aware of your overall risk and see how these bets line up against each other. Let's say you have a $100 bet on Cristiano Ronaldo to score a hat-trick, and you also have a bet on Manchester United, the team that Cristiano Ronaldo plays, to win the game by 3 goals or more. Well, essentially your risk exposure isn't 2 single bets of $100. But because these two are so correlated, if Cristiano Ronaldo scores a hat-trick, it's very likely that Manchester United will win by 3 goals or more, and if he doesn't score a hat-trick, it's very unlikely that will happen. So it's very likely that both will win or both will lose. So essentially your risk exposure isn't just the $100 for each bet, but rather it's pretty much close to $200 just for that event of Cristiano Ronaldo / Manchester United winning by 3 goals or more. You always want to be thinking about how your bets line up, which ones are likely to happen if the other happens, which ones are likely to not happen if the others happen, which is how you want to reduce your risk. You can do this by things like betting on 2 different horses in a race. If one horse wins, well, the other can't win. And if one horse doesn't win, then it's more likely that the other horse will win. You want to be modeling out for each race, for example, especially if you are covering multiple horses in a race, then you want to be able to work out what's the worst scenario that can happen. There might be a single horse you didn't cover, or there might be a single horse you didn't bet as much as you did on the others on. And you obviously want to make sure you can try to reduce that risk as much as you can by increasing your bet size or betting on that horse if you didn't. Other risks is if you are doing multiple bets once again, like for example in arbitrage, you might be betting on both sides. What can happen is one bet will go through on the bookmaker, and then on a betting exchange, some of the liquidity would disappear. And then what ends up happening is you're just left exposed with one single bet while your other bet didn't go through, and now you're super exposed, especially if you did bet a large size. You also want to make sure you read the terms and conditions of each bet that you're placing with the bookmakers as well as with betting exchanges. There might be a lot of terms and conditions that they specify on Tab, for example, with regards to their same game multi offers, and on Betfair there might be rules regarding commissions as well as refunds if a horse ends up getting scratched, which means the horse doesn't race. But what happens if, like for example, a player in a tournament is removed before the games actually begin? Like for example, when Novak Djokovic was removed from the Australian Open because he wasn't eligible because he wasn't vaccinated. People who didn't read the rules carefully thought that Djokovic, if he didn't play, would settle as a loser, but in fact that bet would get refunded. If you had read the rules of the betting exchange, then you would have known that, and instead of making the odds so high for Novak Djokovic, the odds should have just reflected his fair odds if he was assumed to be playing in the tournament. And this therefore created an arbitrage for people like myself to exploit that and take advantage of these people who didn't read the rules. I do go over more details if you want to read about the Djokovic situation up over here. And if you do want to learn more about the profitable strategies that I do actually use and actually bet on every day, then you can take a look at my sports betting strategy package, which I have on my website, and you can find it in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a big like down below and subscribe to this channel to not miss out on my other betting and money making tips that I have lined up for you guys. As always, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.